Take a look at the steps needed to fully assess the workloads within your organization, including any dependencies that might exist when preparing or planning for a migration to the cloud. Discovering your apps and their dependencies can help you to identify which workloads need to be migrated and in what order, but doing so requires a thorough understanding of what you currently have. Now, we'll take a closer look at each of these considerations in just a moment, but that process typically involves 6 stages, including building an app inventory, categorizing those apps, training and educating your migration teams, building a proof of concept, calculating the total cost of ownership, and choosing the appropriate migration order in which to migrate your applications. So, building an app inventory begins by identifying how many items, such as apps, their hardware requirements, and their dependencies exist in your current environment. Now, this task can often require a significant amount of effort, particularly if you don't have any automatic cataloging systems in place. So be sure to utilize the expertise of the teams that are or were responsible for the design, deployment, and operation of the workloads in your current environment, as well as any specific requirements or any restrictions that might prevent any given workload from being migrated to the cloud, such as data storage requirements that might dictate that the data not be stored in the cloud. Non-technical information about each workload should also be included, such as licensing requirements, and bear in mind that your approach to building an inventory is likely not going to be a one-time exercise, particularly if you're in a very large and dynamic environment. If you are, it's entirely possible that by the time you complete an initial inventory, new apps may have appeared or old ones may have been decommissioned. So the inventory not only needs to be initially built, but it may also need to be updated regularly. After building the catalog, you can begin to categorize apps to identify various characteristics about them that will have any kind of impact on their migration into the cloud, which should involve using criteria that covers all requirements of the current environment, such as the resource consumption and or the particulars of their configuration, which can then be used to help prioritize apps to be migrated based on their complexity and the risks they might pose if the app doesn't run effectively in the cloud. And it can also be useful to implement visuals or graphs to highlight how many components have dependencies or which apps represent those that would be the most difficult to migrate. Again, these measures will likely depend on the overall level of the migration itself. In other words, if only a few workloads are being migrated initially, then categorization might not be required.